Hi everybody, hope you're doing well. Welcome to Papagei English, and this is part 2 of our second session. In this session, we're gonna continue talking about matching heading questions. Before starting the course, I would appreciate if you subscribe to my channel, and if you like my videos, like them and leave your comments. Now, let's start the course. Before starting our example, let's review our previous session's points. Now, let's start. Hidden questions sometimes could be challenging to answer, and the strategies we discussed would not be enough to answer. Sometimes the general English is very important. The meaning of some of the vocabulary is key to answer, and if you don't know the meaning of some of the vocabulary, their application in a different context, then you won't be able to answer the questions. Some questions completely depend on some keywords, and without recognizing them, that would be a really challenge to answer the questions correctly. These kinds of questions require a very deep knowledge of the English language and a comprehensive understanding of the text in English. These questions are not hidden questions, and you should look for details in the paragraphs. In other words, they are which paragraph contains the following information questions that disguise themselves in hidden questions. In other words, these questions are very similar to locating information questions. Now, let's start. This is reading passage 2. Let's read the instructions. You should spend about 20 minutes on questions 14 to 26, which are based on reading passage 2 on the following pages. Questions 14 to 20. Reading passage 2 has 7 paragraphs, A to G. Choose the correct heading for each paragraph from the list of headings below. Now, let's go to this slide. This is our list of headings, and this is the title of our passage. It is about something about Eastern Island. Okay, now let's choose our keywords. And as you see, there is no example that has been done for us. Now, let me turn on my highlighter and choose our signals. Evidence of innovative environment management practices. Evidence is important. Words like evidence, theory, explanation, steps, plural nouns, these are important, okay? Evidence of innovative environment management practices. Innovative environment management practices could be our narrower and undisputed answer to a question about the Moai. I don't know what the Moai is, and even maybe I mispronounce these words, but it doesn't matter. It's just a word and it's just a name, okay? An undisputed answer to a question about the Moai. Okay, maybe this passage is about the Moai. The future of Moai statues. The future of Moai statues. Again, we have Moai. The future of Moai statues. A theory which supports a local belief. Theory is important and also a local belief. The future of Easter Island. Easter was our title, and we're gonna look for future of Easter Island. This is a short title, and you can take hold of it as your keywords, okay? Two opposing views about the Darpuni people. Views are important, and we have two opposing views, okay? And also, this is about Darpuni people. Destruction outside inhabitants' control. Destruction outside inhabitants' control. Choose inhabitants as our narrower. How the statues made a situation worse. How the statues made a situation worse. Statues and narrow your option by a situation worse. Diminishing food resources. Again, this is short and you can take hold of it as your keywords. Now, let me turn on my pen and start reading this paragraph. Again, in the real test and while you're practicing at home, you need to just read by your eyes, okay? But because it is a tutorial session, I'm gonna read it aloud and give you explanations. Easter Island, or Papagei, as it is known locally, is home to several hundred ancient human statues. The Moai. Okay, the Moai is statues, the name of some statue, okay? After this remote Pacific island was settled by the Polynesians, it remained isolated for centuries. All the energy and resources that went into the Moai, some of which are 10 meters tall and weigh over 7,000 kilos, Okay, as you see, these sentences are about the Moai statues, came from the island itself. Yet, when Dutch explorers landed in 1722, they met Stone Age culture. The Moai were carved with stone tools, then transported for many kilometers, without the use of animals or wheels, to massive stone platforms. Okay? From the start of the paragraph until platforms, we have an introduction about the Eastern Island and the Moai. Okay, now let's continue the paragraph. The identity of the Moai builders was in doubt until well into the 20th century. The identity is important. This is a scientist. I can't pronounce the name of this scientist. Now, let's just skip it. The Norwegian ethnographer and adventurer thought the statues had been created by pre-Inca people from Peru. Okay, the Norwegian scientists have this kind of viewpoint about Moai statues. Best-selling Swiss author Erich von Däniken believed they were built by stranded extraterrestrials. Okay, this is a second viewpoint about the Moai builders. Modern science, linguistic, archaeological, and genetic evidence has definitely proved the Moai builders were Polynesians. Definitely proved Moai builders were Polynesians. As you see, we have different viewpoints about the identity of the Moais, okay? But the word definitely is our key to answer. If you don't recognize definitely, you would miss the answer. Now, let's go back to our options and undisputed answer to a question about the Moai. That's our answer. Let's continue and read the paragraph until end, but now how they moved their creations. Local folklore maintains that the statues walked. This is another viewpoint as well. While researchers have tended to assume the ancestors tracked the statues somehow using ropes and logs. Okay, as you see, an undisputed answer to a question about the Moai is just in this part of the paragraph, and even it can't be taken as a title for this paragraph. It is based on people's opinions, but it is more like for certain information and specific details in the paragraphs, and here word definitely plays a decisive role in answering to this question. Okay, so this is a little bit challenging because there is no topic sentence and there is no conclusion at the end of the paragraph, and you need to read it whole paragraph in order to answer the questions, and the key to answer is definitely. Okay, and also be careful about viewpoints. When you have different viewpoints in the paragraph, it's important to notice them. Okay, when you have different trends are important. Now, let's go to the next slide and paragraph B. When the Europeans arrived, Rapunui was grassland with only a few scrawny trees. Okay, this is about Rapunua. In the 1970s and 1980s, several researchers found pollen preserved in lake sediments, which proved the island had been covered in lush palm forests for thousands of years. As you see, there is no topic sentence. Some people suggested that when this is the case, just skip it and read some sentences at the end of the paragraph. But I don't recommend this approach because in this way you're not going to understand the concept of the paragraph in a more comprehensive way, and you are more likely to miss the questions. Okay, if you skim the paragraph, it would be better because you don't need to go back to the paragraph. But if you just read some sentences from the first of the paragraph and some sentences from the end of the paragraph and don't get the point, you have to again come back and read the whole paragraph, and that way you would lose a lot of time. Only after the Polynesians arrived did those forests disappear. The forests disappear. U.S. scientist George Diamond believes that the Puni people, descendants of Polynesian settlers, wrecked their own environment. Wrecked means to destroy. They had unfortunately settled on an extremely fragile island, dry, cool, and too remote to be properly fertilized by wind-blown volcanic ash. When the islanders cleared the forest for firewood and farming, the forest didn't grow back. As trees became scarce and they could no longer construct wooden canoes for fishing. They ate birds. Soil erosion decreased their crop yields. Okay, before Europeans arrived, their Puni had descended into civil war and cannibalism. He maintains the collapse of their isolated civilization, Diamond writes, is a worst-case scenario for what may lie ahead of us in our own future. Now, there are some important facts in this paragraph. The first one is they cleared the forest. Also, forest didn't grow back. They ate birds. Soil erosion decreased their crop yields, and also they descended into civil war and cannibalism. Cannibalism means to eat humans, okay? Now, let's go back to our headings. Evidence of innovative environment management. It has nothing to do with the future of my statues. It's nothing about the statues. History, no, there is no story. The future, it's not about the future. It's not about the two opposing views. Destruction outside the inhabitants' control. No, it's not outside of the inhabitants' control. But in this paragraph, the inhabitants were responsible for destruction. How the statues made the situation worse, and also diminishing food resources. That's the answer. As you see again, we had to read the whole paragraph in order to answer the questions. It requires general English. Sometimes there is no technique, no topic sentence, and no concluding sentence. And we need to read the whole paragraph and understand it in order to answer the questions. That's when the questions are difficult and challenging. Now, let's go to the next paragraph. The Moai sings accelerated self-destruction. Okay, just stop here. This is a topic sentence and with one of our keywords, self-destruction. Let's go back to our headings. Destruction outside the inhabitants' control. Okay. Now let's check if it is outside of inhabitants' control or not. Diamond interprets them as power displaced by rival chieftains who, trapped on a remote little island, lacked other ways of asserting their dominance. Okay, they competed by building ever bigger figures. Diamond thinks they laid the Moai on wooden sledges, hold or log rails, but that required both a lot of food and a lot of people. To feed the people even more, land had to be cleared. When the wood was gone and civil war began, the islanders began toppling the Moai. By the 19th century, none were standing. Okay, let's go back. How the statues made a situation worse. Destruction outside the inhabitants' control. Again, this isn't outside the inhabitants' control, but the inhabitants were responsible. Okay, so how the statues made a situation worse. The inhabitants were responsible by building statues as a way of showing their dominance. So in this case, this is the corresponding paragraph. Again, I answered to this paragraph just by reading the whole paragraph. You see, there was a word self-destructions, but you need to be don't cut out by self-destruction. And as I told you in our tips, sometimes you find exactly the same words in the paragraphs and in the topic sentence, but you need to check the whole paragraph in order to answer the question correctly. Let's go to the next one. Archaeologist Terry Hunt of the University of Hawaii and Carl Lick of California State University agreed that Easter Island lost its lush forests and that it was a catastrophe. Okay? But they believed the islanders themselves weren't to blame. There is an opposing view. These scientists believe that the islanders themselves weren't to blame, and the Moai certainly weren't. Even the Moai were not responsible for the catastrophe in Ireland. Archaeological excavations indicate that the Rupuni went to heroic efforts to protect the resources of their wind-lashed and fertile fields. They built thousands of circular stone windbreaks and gardened inside them, and used broken volcanic rocks to keep the soil moist. In short, Hunt and Filippo argued that prehistoric Rupuni were pioneers of sustainable farming. As you see, there is a concluding sentence in this paragraph: sustainable farming. Okay, and in the previous sentence, we have something about the Rupuni people's endeavor to help the island. Okay, to help to continue have forests or life on their island. Now let's go back to our options. Evidence of innovative environment management practices. You can find the word evidence in this paragraph. Archaeological excavations. This is exactly the paraphrase of evidence. And also sustainable farming, innovative environment management. We found the answer I. Okay, let's go to the, you can even take other paragraphs as well. We have an opposing view, but we don't have two opposing view in that paragraph. And also destruction outside the inhabitants' control. It's not about destruction outside the inhabitants' control. Okay, and it's not about the future of my statues, and also there is no theory which supports a local belief. You can just look at your options and eliminate your options and choose the most suitable title for each of the paragraphs. Now, let's go on to the paragraph E. Hunt and Filippo contend that Moai building was an activity that helped keep the peace between islanders. Okay, they think that it helped to keep the peace between islanders. They also believed that moving the Moai required few people and no wood, because they were walked outright. Okay, they walked outright. As you see, there is no topic sentence. On that issue, Hunt and Filippo say archaeological evidence. Archaeological evidence is important. Backs up Rupuni folklore. Backs up Rupuni folklore. Folklore, again, is a vocabulary that plays the decisive role in this paragraph. And if you don't know the meaning of folklore, you're going to miss the answer, okay? It is very important to be able to recognize the definition of some words and be able to paraphrase with them. Backs up also could be paraphrased with support. Archaeological evidence could be paraphrased with a theory, okay? A theory which supports a local belief. Now, let's check the paragraph. Recent experiments indicate that as few as 18 people could, with 3 strong ropes and a bit of practice, easily maneuver a 1,000 kilogram Moai replica a few hundred meters. That's it. We found the answer. Now, that was a theory which supports local belief. And as you see, again, it was similar to a case that we were looking for locating some specific information. They are very similar to the which paragraphs contains the following information instead of heading questions. Okay, this is the toughest ones in which you have to search for some specific information and the details. Now let's go on to the next paragraph. And as you see, again we have to read most parts of the paragraph. Moreover, Hunt and Filippo are convinced that the settlers were not wholly responsible for the loss of the island's trees. Finally, we have a topic sentence that can help us to answer this paragraph easily. There is a clear topic sentence. The settlers were not wholly responsible for the loss of island's trees. Archaeological finds of nuts from the extinct Easter. Just check by your eyes. I'm going to do it as well. And that's it. We can answer this paragraph. Destruction outside inhabitants' control. That was the only easy one in this example. Now let's go on to the last one. Hunt and Lippo's vision. Vision is important. It can be paraphrased with viewpoint, perspective. Therefore is one of an island populated by peaceful and ingenious Nuite builders and careful stewards of the land. Okay, Hunt and Lippo, contrary to the Diamond's belief, think that islanders helped to keep the peace in Ireland and were ingenious Noahide builders, rather than by reckless destroyers running their own environment and society. The word rather than is important. We use rather than for comparison, okay? By reckless destroyers running their own environment and society. Rather than, again, we have a rather than. We use rather than for comparison. We use word like as while or whereas for comparison, okay? Or on the other hand, for comparing two different viewpoints. A case of abject failure. Now, let's just check the rest of the paragraph. And this is a short paragraph. And in around 90% of the cases, when the paragraphs are short, you have to read the whole of them. But in just two or three sentences were enough to find the answer for this paragraph. Two opposing views about the Rapuni people. Now, that was the end of this example. Let me give you an examination. As you see in paragraph 1, we find some specific details, some vocabulary that played the key role, and without recognition of this vocabulary, finding the answer would be very difficult. And we had to read most of the paragraph. And again, we had this scenario in paragraph B, paragraph C, and paragraph D. We looked for some specific details and informations. There were no clear topic sentence and even no concluding sentence in these two paragraphs. But paragraph D had a concluding sentence. But I recommend you just read the whole paragraph in order to make sure that you answer the questions correctly. Okay, let's go to the next slide. The paragraph F was only paragraph which was easy to answer. Paragraph E was challenging, and the folklore played the main role in this paragraph. And also paragraph G was the words like rather than or the vision was important to notice. Let me turn off my pen and show you the answers. These are the answers. You can take note of them if you wish. That's the end of our session 2 and our discussion on matching heading features. I hope it would be useful for you. Again, if you subscribe to my channel and like my videos, I would be happy. Thank you very much and have a nice day.